What's up, guys, and welcome to the weekly Q&A. Alright, I can't do the whole video like that, but one of my patrons sent me this, and it's just awesome. His name is Riley, and this thing is crazy. It's so cool. So I just wanted to show it off, say thank you to Riley for sending it over, and now I just have to find time to make the rest of the suit. Our first question this week comes from Vando Wilrisian, Stephen McDonald, and Omega Wolf, who all ask what returning characters we might see in Star Wars Resistance this fall. I think it's mostly going to be like Star Wars Rebels, where it's an all-new cast of characters, but familiar faces will weave in and out of the story as needed. So we already know that Poe and Phasma and BB-8 will be involved to some degree. I would be surprised if we never saw Snap Wexley or Jessica Pava and the other members of Black Squadron. Jason Syndulla does make a lot of sense to me because he wasn't really a character in Rebels. We only met him right at the end. He'd be in his mid to late 20s by that point in time, and his presence would allow us to more believably bring in characters from the past, like his mother Hera. And then there are book characters like Greer Sonnel or Joff Seastriker. They were both in the book Bloodline that told us the beginning of the Resistance. So there are a lot to choose from. I think Jason is the only one I could potentially see being a main character, and the others would probably just kind of come in and out. But really, your guess is as good as mine. Lucas Carlisle wants to know what would have happened if Mace Windu had killed Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith. I think that's a really fun what-if scenario, and considering we know that after the Battle of Endor, Palpatine had Operation Cinder set up against his own faction, like he wanted to punish them for letting him die, I have to think he would have had a just-in-case scenario for himself had he died in the Clone Wars. Like maybe the inhibitor chips in the clone troopers would have triggered if he had died, and that probably wouldn't have been as effective or coordinated than him actually issuing Order 66, but I figure that if he died, he wanted to make sure he took as many Jedi as he could with him. Monkey House 143 asks if it bothers me that we're seeing so much Imperial technology in Solo, a Star Wars story. Like we're seeing Imperial-class Star Destroyers and TIE Fighters and none of their Clone Wars predecessors. No, that doesn't bother me because we've already seen stories that take place only 1 year after Revenge of the Sith that include TIE Fighters and Star Destroyers, and that to me does feel a little bit fast. I mean, there is a way to justify that, I think, and this is backed up by the book Thrawn, but that stuff was basically kind of gradually rolled out. It didn't happen overnight, but some people did get Star Destroyers quickly, like Tarkin. We see him in the Darth Vader comic with TIE Fighters and his own Star Destroyer and a couple more. He was a very important leader, so he got that stuff fast, but less important Moffs and people like Thrawn, they had to wait with Venators until there were enough of them to go around. So yeah, it doesn't bother me that we're seeing that in Solo, that we're only seeing Imperial stuff, because we basically have already dealt with that in the books and the comics. Asian Studios wants to know what happened to Hu Yang, the droid that helped Padawans build their lightsabers. I hate to say this, but I have to imagine nothing good happened to him after Order 66. Palpatine did his best to wipe all knowledge of the Jedi out of existence, so I don't imagine he would escape that purge. But we don't know. There has been no confirmation either way. So you can still hold out hope if you want him to be alive and out there somewhere. It's possible, but I just tend to assume that, yeah, he's probably been destroyed. Kaylee Miller asks what Jedi I trust, in reference to a video I did this past Sunday about the nature of the Force, and I said that I trust the Jedi, Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Yoda, and their views on the Force, and that's really all I mean, is that their views on the Force line up more with what I think. And like I said in that video, that's just like my opinion. I don't have the final word on how the Force works, but they were more focused on the spiritual side, especially as time went on. And the Jedi of the prequels were largely very clinical in their views. I mean, we see them putting Anakin through these tests, and they're doing blood tests to see if their midichlorian count is high enough that these people are even worth bothering training. And to me, I think that they should have been more looking at people who wanted to be trained and like had this desire to be Jedi instead of seeking out children that they were like, well, they have the natural talent and we can probably make them very strong very fast. I think that was just kind of a strange way to look at the Force. And like Yoda and Qui-Gon, they were a part of that system. They were not flawless. But yeah, when I say that I trust them, like I would still trust Mace Windu or Ki-Adi-Mundi. I think that they were good guys. But I just meant that, yeah, I think that Qui-Gon was more what a Jedi should have been in The Phantom Menace. I think he was our best example. And then Yoda and Obi-Wan as well, especially in the original trilogy, their views on the Force shifted. And they even made an effort to show Yoda's views shifting at the end of the Clone Wars series. So that was really all I was talking about, was the nature of the Force. Not that I don't trust any of the other Jedi in the Council. That's it for patron questions. If you're a patron and you didn't see your question answered here, just head over to Patreon where I left you a written response. If you're not a patron, you can learn more by following the link in the description. Just $1 a month will get you access to extra Star Wars Explained content like audio commentaries for the films or roles in my Discord server, and the combined donations really go a long way in supporting the channel. On to YouTube questions. The High Ground asks if there's any canonical reason for the Praetorian Guard dropping his blade in that fight between them and Rey and Kylo. And no, there's not. I mean, it's just an error in a film. If you want me to give an answer, like, he dropped it, and we just didn't see that he dropped it. But the thing is, like, people jumped all over that like it was some huge problem. It's like a movie in a very choreographed fight, and we don't know why that shot was kept. Maybe he was supposed to drop it, and we were supposed to visibly see it, but that was the best take that they had, so they kept it. Or maybe it was just like we left that in there, just digitally remove it. And that's fine, because that fight is not about the choreography. That fight is about Kylo and Rey teaming up together and relishing in that moment and wondering what's going to happen next. And I mean, I never ever would have noticed that if someone didn't point it out to me, because I wasn't paying attention to the choreography, which I still think is great, but I was more just thrilled in the story. Like, that was the point. That's my favorite scene in The Last Jedi, by far. So, like, people pointing out mistakes like that to me, I'm like, it doesn't matter, because all I remember is how I felt in that moment, which was just straight up thrilled. Alexander Waldall wants to know if I think Yoda was thinking about Dooku when he told Luke that failure is one of the greatest teachers of all. Yeah, I think he was probably thinking about Dooku and Anakin. I mean, Yoda, as Grand Master of the Jedi Council, had a hand in training 2 fallen Jedi Sith Lords. Those are pretty big failures on his part. So yeah, I think those failures probably better prepared him to teach Luke when the time came. Grandmaster Skywalker asks if the First Order had alien stormtroopers because in the Battlefront 2 story DLC, we see an Abednego tell Iden that the First Order had come and taken all their children. So were they abducting Abednego children? I think this is a fun question because I'm willing to bet that that character was Abednego simply because it was a pre-built asset. And if it were a human, they would have had to make a new model, a new character, so that we as the audience knew it was someone different. So I think that's the real reason, but I do like trying to justify those things and make them work. So I have 2 options. And one of them would be that that character was just like the governor of an entirely human colony except for him. But what I think is probably more likely and much worse is that the First Order came and they took all the children because it's faster to just grab them all instead of pick and choose only the human ones. We don't have any evidence to suggest that they have alien stormtroopers, so I would guess that they were using all humans, but they probably took all of the children, and then they probably just got rid of the non-human ones, which is incredibly grim, but the First Order are the bad guys. Sam Lee wants to know what that skull is that we can see on Mandalorian crests and flags and whatnot. In Legends, that thing was called a mythosaur, and it was basically a giant dragon-like creature that lived on Mandalore that the Mandalorians then drove to extinction, and then they took it up as their crest to show how badass they were. JGR asks if I think we'll ever see Darth Jar Jar become true in canon. No, I don't think that's ever going to come true, but I do think that occasionally it will be referenced for fun. For example, in a recent issue of the Darth Vader comic, there's a Jedi Master who's kind of going through known associates of the Sith and Anakin, and he lists out, Darth Sidious and Darth Tyrannus, Darth Plagueis, and then right below Plagueis he lists just the word Binks, and right after that is Amidala. But I do think that it was intentional to put Binks kind of with the Sith Lords. I think that they might make light of that every once in a while for fun, but I don't think it'll ever actually come true. That's all the time I have for questions today. If you want to leave a question for next week's video, just put it in the comments below or sign up for Patreon to join our weekly Q&A discussion. Also, since we're about a month out from this, and if you didn't know already, on June 2nd, I will be competing in a live Star Wars movie trivia schmodown against Ken Knapsack and Joseph Scrimshaw. So if you are in the area and you want to come cheer me on, if you're interested in that at all, if you want to see me destroy them, fingers crossed, you can do that, and I put a link to the tickets in the description. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.